All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions. 540-0580. That's 540-0580. Of course, you want to learn a little bit more about me, go to romingerlaw.com, R-O-M-I-N-G-E-R, law.com, and the office number is 717-241-6070, 241-6070. But the talk line number today is 540-0580. If you have a legal question, call in. We'll answer it here on the air if we can. If we can't, we'll figure out where we need to go from there. I posted on Facebook a little earlier this afternoon, talking about politics for a second here. Candidates slammed for World of Warcraft fandom. So there's a woman running for state senate in Maine against a Republican incumbent, and she's a World of Warcraft person with her persona on there, which she's very open about and apparently heavily involved in. And, of course, the Democratic Party of Maine has taken a stab at her and released a press release saying her social media / gamesmanship stuff is just creepy and scary, and she really shouldn't possibly hold office. First of all, she's engaged in what I would consider to be a fairly mainstream activity, which is playing a role-playing game online. Some people call it Facebook. This time it's World of Warcraft. But what I'm most interested in, the reason I highlight it, isn't for the particular content, except to show the candidate himself who's running, and then comes out and says, I could care less what she does in her personal life. I'm not running attack ads and never would, and I don't have anything to do with this ad. See, that's the new mantra. That's the way they do it today. Because the money is flowed into parties and other entities that are not related to the candidates, and because they don't coordinate per se, even though a lot of times they share half the same staff, et cetera, and they set up these little paper walls. In law, we call it a Chinese wall, when in a law firm we create a barrier so that two lawyers may never see or discuss something in order to prevent a conflict of interest from developing. A Chinese wall, and you imagine like a very long, thick, heavy wall, the wall of China, hence the term Chinese wall. Well, in the campaign finance arena and in the campaign coordination arena, they use a paper wall where you can hear the other side talking through the wall. So you didn't have a conversation, but you heard enough about what the other side was doing to coordinate it. More importantly, what they do is they put all the negative attack ads into one bucket, which is not the candidate's bucket, and then they do the positive, touchy-feely stuff with the candidate's money. And that way, when something becomes unpopular or goes wrong, the candidate simply goes, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not in favor of that. I had nothing to do with it. Why, if you listen, that ad was put out by the Democrats for so-and-so or the Republican state leadership committee or whoever, not me. I didn't do it. I didn't take a negative stance. So no one takes ownership of these negative ads anymore except these unaccountable third-party groups, which are actually super PACs and wholly owned subsidiaries of various campaigns, but for the financial separation and that little paper wall that they can hear each other talking through. So don't be fooled, folks. That's why I wanted to point this story out. It just is another great example of how the candidates can look you in the eye and say, I would never run a negative ad, and I would never attack that guy that way, and I would never make somebody's personal life an issue in the campaign, but I can't help it that somebody else did. And, oh, yeah, by the way, I guess I get to talk about it some more and call it to your attention simply by doing the 1-2 of, hey, I'm not the guy who pointed out all the terrible things this other candidate does in their personal life. You're hearing that from a third party. So, okay, again, those things are blah, 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 but I'm not the one talking about them. Anyhow, that's my editorial for the day. I just want you guys to remember that going in. I mean, we're seeing that in our own elections here in Pennsylvania. We're seeing third-party ads coming in from outside. I'm listening to a lot running on this station, for instance. I would do some fact-checking on them if I were you. Anytime it's not endorsed by a candidate, be extra suspicious. And if it's endorsed by a candidate, just be suspicious, because you really can't trust anything in the political ad arena. It's all designed to carefully corral you in a direction. I've also learned, believe it or not, there's a whole bunch of fake people on Facebook and Twitter that the campaign set up. Now, it's not directly the campaign, it's some third party, organization that's hired, given some money, and they set up, fake identities and people who espouse things and post things and are designed to interact with other people and act as a real person, but try to create large movements on the social media. So make sure you know who all your friends are and check them out one by one. 540-0580 is the talk line number. Of course, you want to get a legal question answered here on the air. We'll do that here today. I just wanted to talk about the political campaign because it is getting very, very close to the election. If anybody wants to comment on the debate, I'm happy to take a little bit of commentary on that. I watched it. I thought Romney did well. I don't think Obama did as poorly as some people would say he did. On substance side of things, I think they both address things in a much more substantive way. And to quote Bob Durgan and some other commentators, are they good getting in the weeds, you know? Well, that's the problem. We need them to get in the weeds once in a while. Unfortunately, once they start to get in the weeds, unless you've got a lot of background on the issue, it's very difficult to follow it. Jay, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Oh, I thought I was going to have to wait a couple minutes. I wasn't going to call because I really don't have any legal stuff, but since you mentioned that, it occurred to me, obviously I'm of the opinion that these guys, and I say guys and gals, whoever, who make the rules are going to always make the rules in their favor. And I don't see ethical people anymore. And I was thinking about the Supreme Court decision that said a corporation is the same thing as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what logic they used on that one, but why, you know, all this stuff, campaign, I don't know if you could say it's because of the television age, but why, in your opinion, are things so unethical, or do we just know or recognize the lack of ethics?
Yellow journalism was here from the very beginning. In fact, if you were King Edward at the time, you'd probably be pretty sure that the newspapers in the colonies were slandering you daily. And they were. And even through the first presidential election, the newspapers were all about slandering the candidates and published things about them that we would consider downright personal. I mean, they'd have articles that just about suggested that the candidate had given venereal disease to all the women in some village, you know?
I want to ask you this, you know, because some of there have been legal cases where, let's say, a magazine printed something, published something about a star or, you know, celebrity, mm-hmm. and they were sued for slander when it wasn't true. I guess they're very careful to make sure. You know, I got an ad, and I'm a registered Democrat, and I got an ad against my Republican state representative, who I think at least means to do a good job and certainly answers my phone calls. Mm-hmm. And they started tying her into the Tea Party and this, and I don't think she's that dogmatic. She may have voted for things I don't agree with. And I did try to call the Democratic State Committee, and I got 2 or 3 numbers, and the guy that I did talk to, he didn't listen. He didn't say a thing.
Right.
And I'm sure he didn't push it up, although he took my number. Now, is it possible? Have you known? Are they completely, you know, is it like the legislature when they, or the police when they put somebody in jail for 30 years who didn't commit the crime? Are they completely, can they not be sued?
No, you could sue, but here's the problem. In politics, the First Amendment protections are very high. And so when somebody is running for office, we don't want to chill speech. So, for instance, you can pretty much say anything at all you want about the president, okay? And it's not going to be actionable. When it comes to...
You can say he was arrested in 1998.
You can say the president was arrested and he raped my wife and all kinds of things.
And if it's not true...
And it's not true, it's probably still not going to have any action or be close to unactionable. And frankly, in America, high political figures don't even dig down. In other countries, believe it or not, the presidents of the countries do sue people who say things.
I realize that. I just guess I don't understand. I don't understand. Maybe that's why I've never been more successful in terms of money and everything. I just don't understand that.
Read the discourses.
I don't care about anybody else kind of attitude.
Read the discourses by Machiavelli. It'll set you straight.
I don't doubt it. Thanks a lot, Carl.
All right, Jay. I got to go to break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. 540-0580 is the talk line number if you want to join in here and talk with us. Carmen, you're on the air. Frost will be up next. What's up, Carmen?
Oh, good afternoon. I'm just wanting to comment in regard to the debate.
Mm-hmm.
Randy did excellent. Obama was looking all the time to the floor. He was looking I don't know when he was looking at, but he was, like making faces with somebody. So I think he was unable to refute all the lies that they have been talking about Randy. And Obama hasn't done anything. Only giving free telephones to people, giving food stamps and this and that, the homosexual agenda, the support for that. that this country, if we keep going that way, we are going to be cursed, or we are cursed already. And all the things that he said that he killed Obama and this and that, reducing the military force, he is just messing up. Plus the bailout of the banks. For me, this man has to go. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
No problem. Thank you. There we go. There's Carmen on Obama. 540-0580. Frost, you're on the air.
Yes, thank you for your time. This is more of a statement, but there's a question in here. For the last 12, well, longer than that, for about 17 years, this state has collected money from the teachers,
right,
from the county workers, from the state workers, all of them to pay into this pension program that they're supposed to then take that money and put into investments. Well, since the early mid-'90s, when things were the economy really picked up and investments were booming, they made a conscious choice. And these are the people that we elected. We hold them accountable. And I feel that they did not put the money, they didn't even take the money they collected from people on a biweekly basis and put it in the investment funds because they were getting such great returns on the investments. And
right.
We've known since 2006 that this is coming to a head. And what happened? 2007, 2008, the economy crashed. Now they're having hearings, backdoor rooms. They're up there scrambling. What are we going to do? We're $40 billion in the hole. There's no way that they can just, print money like the government. So, and this falls now on each and every taxpayer like myself that works 2 jobs to make it in this economy. And now I'm going to get taxed higher, and so are you, Carl, because they have to make up for all the county, state, and teachers and everything that gets pensions. Now, my question is, they swore when they're elected, they take an oath that they will, and their oath is that, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm giving it's just like if I have a private investment person, and I'm giving him money every 2 weeks, and of course, when I get my returns on these investments, everything's the gravy train right now. Things look great, and meanwhile, the son of a gun isn't taking the money that I'm giving him every 2 weeks, though. He's doing something else with it. Now, that's a crime, is it not?
Well, it's interesting. You're right. It is a crime. It has a fiduciary duty to you. Now, the question is, do the people in charge of the pension fund have a fiduciary duty to the pensioners, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, if it's for the private citizen and the private sector, we get held accountable. We could get dragged into court, either civil or criminal. Why can people that are elected and then they appoint people to take care of this investment fund, why, can Governor Ridge just walk on out, like he did? Because, this was mainly during the Ridge administration. And, I could care less that, he had to leave then to be appointed Homeland Security Director. Who cares? As far as I'm concerned, your first duty was to the citizens of Pennsylvania. And they knowingly and willingly did not put the money where it was supposed to be because of the investments were doing so well. That's not how that is not how it works.
But they've done this at all levels of government, which is to raid one fund to pay for something else so that they can avoid raising taxes. There's this, what would we call it? It's a problem. And here's what part of the problem is. Okay, nobody can raise taxes, right? Because if you raise taxes, that's political suicide. That's the theory. So
that's the theory, right.
So we can't raise taxes. So what we do is we come up with 8,000 other ways to generate revenue without calling it a tax. So we'll put fees on this. So there's a tanning bed fee as part of the healthcare initiative, right?
Right.
Or we tax the inside of an industry so the consumer doesn't see it. So every time you go to the gas pump, how many of those pennies per gallon are going for tax, right?
Yes.
And we all the different taxes there. We got the Johnstown flood tax on the liquor, but you don't see it because it goes right into the liquor price.
Right, that's been 100 years almost. Go ahead, I know.
so they got to hide all those things because nobody wants to raise taxes. On the other hand, while everybody's for smaller government, everybody loves it when somebody spends money on them. So we have to have a program for everybody so that everybody has something warm and fuzzy to feel about, right? So the way the system is set up, there's a desire to avoid collecting revenue if we can, and if we do, we still have to hide it. And so if you hide it, it's never going to be very efficient. And at the same time, we have to pretend that we love everybody and give everybody as much money as possible in a pet program, because we leave anybody out, they might not vote for us. And so this is the problem in a representative democracy. There is very, very little fortitude for raising taxes and cutting benefits, even if that's what's necessary. So then it gets even worse when you're in these high times, right? When the money's flowing in left and right. The political desire to do anything but spend it, that's all the political desire there is. There's no ability to put down a rainy day fund. There's no ability to sink it in investments, pay down debt. What have big corporations been doing lately? You notice a lot of them have been buying back stock or paying down debt, building cash reserves. They have a very different incentive than government.
Exactly, because they would be bankrupted, or they would be, or another competing business would wipe them out for acting like foolhardily.
Right.
And that's my point, Carl. For the people, as far as I'm concerned, and I know people don't want to hear this, but the group that should suffer for that are the group that. It's just like say you and I and 5 other people, when you invest a bunch of money in this guy's idea. We really think this might take off, and we realize 5 years later, well, we lost that investment. I feel that that's exactly what should happen here. Now something should be given to certain pensioners, and other than that, like the one guy said, I've seen this news clip. Well, how are we going to make sure this never happens again? I don't even want to hear about that, because, see, they're all educated people. It should have never happened to begin with. And now you left your own people to suffer, and to say each and every now person that has nothing to do with that pension system has to pay. This is why politics is so dirty, because Ridge administration passed, when they sat up there in 2000 during the gravy train, and they doubled the pension that people get. Whether you are on the turnpike, wherever you are working for the state, they increased the pensions by almost 50%. And knowing at the same time they have not taken the money that they're supposed to be putting in the fund to keep the investments going higher and higher in case the returns, in case the economy gets weak, the stock market falls. They didn't do that. But then they go and make a mandatory statute that's because basically this is going to be a constitutional battle now, because with what was signed as the governor's almost executive statement order is that this must be done no matter what, meaning no matter what happens, they have to do that. And remember when they were mailing everybody property tax rebate checks back about 10 years ago, where it cost them thousands of dollars to mail us all $100? That kind of wacko stuff that was going on, knowing at the same time that they had this problem, and they're part of the problem. Well,
here's my question for you. I mean, just sidestep that whole debate for 1 second. Where is all the casino revenue going? I thought that was going to meaningfully reduce our property taxes.
Well, we all knew, but it's fuzzy math is what it is. See, I live on a poor section of, right on the city line, county line. So people that live, a half a mile down the road from me, they only get, $100. Where me, I'm right on the line. I get $300-400. That's part of my little fringe benefit of putting up with chaos half the time. But
right, and what I'm come back to here is, so here's the real issue. You can blame the Ridge administration. We can blame Rendell for not really taking any steps to measure it. I don't really think Corbett's done anything to remedy the problem either, and I don't think he has the political courage to tackle the problem at the end of the day.
He has no choice. Next year, we got a bunch more 30-year retirees coming online. And the older retirees, now their money isn't as loud as the new retiree money that's coming. But now with that, there's how are you going to pay for this? Well, we're going to have to raise taxes. And see, for once in these politicians' lives, they need a spine. Raising taxes is not sending your grandmother to hell. It's not. Raising taxes is how a society.
But the governor
runs.
signed Grover Norquist's pledge not to raise taxes.
And I know, and who's Grover Norquist? That's what I love. Here's this citizen. He's a citizen just like you and I. He's this one man. But for some reason, this one man gets them to sign this stuff. Well, the way I feel is everyone that felt that was right and they're so for that, goodbye pension, or you're only getting half your pension now. Why? Because their own people. It's just like, I'll end it like this. So just give me one more minute. I live in Lebanon County. For 39 years, they didn't do a county assessment on properties. What kind of elected officials, the county commissioners, would do that to their constituents? Well, you know what? Half the people, they had 5,000 appeals going on now because of this county assessment, and they're only halfway through it. And a lot of them people that are really upset are the same ones that never wanted an assessment. No, I don't need nothing, but, you're doing more and more work to your property. Oh, I'm not worried about that. Now, the bill came due, and, because of someone taking something to court and a judge that didn't have to worry about being elected, it's politics always starts at home. See, the judge that said, you know what, this is wrong, and then now one must be ordered. Right. And that judge didn't have to run for re-election. He was very slick. He retired 1 year early, and that way he could be the visiting judge for the next 10 years. And so he did the right thing. He ordered the assessment. Now people are freaking. People's taxes went from $3,000 to $7,000, $8,000. Hey, what did you expect when you just let stuff go?
I understand. Now, it's very interesting. It is. And the Lebanon County one has generated a lot of traffic on this show. I got to go to break for us. Thank you very much.
Very much. Bye-bye.
All right, we'll see you guys in a minute. 540-0580. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. 540-0580, answering your legal questions, doing a little political talk today. Jerry, you're on the air.
Real quick, I have a proposal for you. I happen to own a domain name called familyadvocate.com.
Okay.
If you're interested in picking it up for $100 and a couple of free wills, I'd be happy to give it to you.
All right. We'll always be interested in that. We always like a good domain name.
Yeah, it's a great domain name. I'll call your office, and like I said, a couple of free wills and just $100. It's all yours.
Ask for Shane.
I'm
at the
sorry,
office. Ask for Shane Clark at the office. He'll get you together.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good day.
All right, brother. 540-0580. Tradio, welcome to Tradio. Joe, you're on the air. Hey, Joe.
Hi.
What are you selling, Joe?
I got a question. I'm trying to help my dad out. Not that he thinks he needs it, but he keeps getting these sweepstakes verifications and notifications that he's won all this money. He gets 4, 5, 6 a day in the mail. He kind of lives for this stuff. When he sends them cash, I know that ain't good, and we tell him, the bank's told him. Is there anything we can do on our side that we can get this stopped?
Well, I mean, who's getting them?
My dad.
No, I mean, you don't know. You got to find out who's sending them all this stuff.
Oh yeah, I have. There's different ones. What is it? These are H&L Trust. Another one's American Entry Exchange. Another H&L Trust.
So these are from what? Some kind of scammers?
I don't know. He sends the money, he never gets nothing. He said this money is guaranteed $325,000. We were up there this weekend. Some guy called him and said he won $3.5 million. He just had to give them a gift card for $500 from Walmart.
Right. That's definitely a scam.
Yeah. Well, we intervened on that. Luckily, he gave the phone to me. And we told the guy, you bring the check to the bank, and then we'll verify it, and then we'll give you your $500. Of course, he wouldn't do that. He hung up.
Right.
But we're trying to get him to stop, but he just won't. He's 94, and he really thinks it sounds official.
I hate to tell you this, but at this stage, it sounds like he's no longer competent to handle his own financial affairs. And what that means is you're going to have to file what's called a competency action. And judge would then hear from his doctor and testimony from you guys. Look at the banking records would be a good way to show. And you show the judge what's going on, and the judge will restrict the access to his funds. And basically somebody would then act like a guardian for him for spending his funds. So he'd no longer have access to his own money anymore.
Yeah.
Now, it's politically difficult.
Yeah,
right?
but this is the only thing he's really whacked out on. I mean, he still drives.
Right, but that's why the guardianship would just be for use of his funds. It's not locking him up. It's just restricting his access because it seems like he's reached a point, at least as when it comes to finances, that he's susceptible to these scams.
Wow, that's the only way to do it, huh?
I would say. I mean, I can't think of anything else. I mean, you could try to stop the people that are doing it, but you're going to find out they're all like in Canada.
Oh yeah, some of them are from out of country for sure.
Yeah, that's.
Oh well.
So that's the best advice I got from you.
Well, yeah, we had already discussed that, but we really don't want to. Didn't want to really go there. If he's just sending him cash, which I know he does a lot of times, just like $10, $15, $20, he thinks, oh, that's it's worth a try. For $20, I could win.
No. Yeah, no.
But is there any way that they could?
I mean, I'd get law enforcement involved at this point, but you're going to find that he's probably on some master list of people who will actually respond to these things.
Yeah. Yeah, once you send one out, you're doomed.
Right. I see this sometimes when we do estates and we get the elderly person's mail. You'd be amazed at all the scammy mail that older people get.
Yeah.
And it's all about, Save the Kittens Fund, just send $25.
Yeah.
The Blind Widows of Firefighters Fund. I mean, just all kinds of crazy, scammy stuff with very nice, slick mailers. And what happens is once you respond to one of those, then those guys sell the names to each other. And the marketer, it's just an endless scam. All right?
Okay, thank you.
All right, my friend. I would suggest the guardianship. Skip, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on?
Hi, Carl. Hey, I agree with you 100%. That's nothing but a big scam. I hope that guy can do something to maybe get to be custodian or something of the father's funds, because that's all that is. Boy, they're in Canada, they're in Nigeria, and boy, they prey on senior citizens. And once you send to one, like you said, boy, they're all sharing that information, and those things will never stop. It's really a tough situation like that. And I want to ask you a question about the Better Business Bureau.
Okay.
They have them in most cities or most towns, or like Carlisle, Harrisburg. They all have, or are they countywide? Or
I think they're kind of quasi-regional.
Okay.
So I know we have like a Chamber of Commerce in Carlisle.
Okay. Are they very effective as far as business people? If you have a complaint against a business person, and this would be in Carlisle, does the Chamber of Commerce have much pull, or are they just like a dog with no bite?
No, I mean, they certainly are something that attracts businesses' interest because it's something that people can check with.
I see.
So what happens is, the Better Business Bureau, if somebody calls them up and says, hey, I'm going to do business with this guy, do you have any, and they say, well, yeah, we've had 5 complaints with him where nobody's done anything.
But if you do have a complaint and you file it with them, they don't act on your behalf or anything, do they?
They can just investigate it and ask the business to, make them aware of it and ask them to address it.
I see.
But they don't have any teeth, let's say.
Right, okay. So in that case, then, if you have some kind of a discrepancy, you'd have to go to the Attorney General's office, the Bureau of Consumer Complaints or something?
Right.
Okay. All right, very good. Thanks a lot, Carl.
All right, my friend. Yeah, interestingly, for instance, the Better Business Bureau will not recommend a business for you. But what they want to do then is instead have you contact them about a specific business, and then they'll tell you if there's any complaints or not, and then they try to look into them and address them. So I've never been contacted by them, to my knowledge, but I know other people, other businesses have, and a lot of times it's like, somebody complains they thought they were overpaid, or somebody wouldn't let them return something, and they want to know, make a complaint, and they want to know the facts and circumstances. It's kind of like on eBay with the PayPal people where they open a dispute and there's a resolution process to see what both sides are. Dahlia.
Hi, Carl.
How are you?
Good. Hey, I work for the post office, and for that man whose father keeps sending him to sweepstakes and stuff, what he can do, and anybody that wants to get rid of what we call bulk mail, they call junk mail,
Mm-hmm.
They can go online to the Direct Mailing Association website. It's dma.org.
Okay.
And they can sign up for the no-call list for cell phones as well as that stuff. And also, it takes about 30 to 45 days to kick in, but it will limit a lot of that sweepstakes mail that he gets.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll take about a month and a half, but it'll start dropping off. So his dad will have less access to that crap.
Good.
Okay?
So was it DMA.org?
DMA.org, yeah.
Direct Mail Association.
Yep. And anybody can, help limit any kind of solicitations, if they get those unwanted sex things, or if they get, just any unwanted solicitations.
And I suppose that wouldn't stop an individual scammer who just wants to send first-class mail, but this will get rid of probably what the bulk of the mail would be.
Right, yeah. It will prevent a lot of that from coming to him. And then even, they can sign up to not get those red plum papers, the Velasquez papers that have, the pizza ads on them and stuff. So
got it.
Okay, and
right,
they can also do that online at USPS.com. They just have to go into, I think it's RNBR, I think it's called. It's there's a whole bunch of options, but they can limit not having the stuff delivered to their house either.
Oh, good.
All right, but DMA will definitely help.
I appreciate that. DMA.org.
Yep.
Thank you, Dahlia.
Okay.
Bye. 540-0580. That's the great thing about the listeners. They know more than we do. Stan, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. Thanks for taking my call. I have two questions for you. The first involves my mother-in-law who passed away about 3 weeks ago. She was in a nursing home, had no assets at all other than a couple of $1,000s in life insurance, which just, barely scratched the surface of the total cost. My question to you, is there anything that needs to be filed with the courthouse relative to settling an estate? And I'm using that term not knowing if that's the proper term.
When somebody dies with what we call an insolvent estate, life insurance goes to whoever the beneficiaries are. If those beneficiaries are children, then they collect it, etc. They don't have to do anything with it. It's their money. Other than that, you would never want to open an estate for an insolvent person because what ends up happening is you end up having to do all the work and there's no reward for it. Okay. So if one of the creditors wants to open the estate to try to get at some asset that's out there, they're free to do that, but you leave it up to them.
And she didn't owe any money to anyone, so it was just there's nothing there.
Nothing to do.
Okay. Final question. A friend of ours got married about 6 months ago, and marriage is not working out at all. And is there such a thing as an annulment within a period of 6 months or 1 year that they can back out of that marriage and just pretend it never happened?
Pennsylvania does not really have such a thing. And what I mean by that, we have annulments, but not just because, or not just because the marriage is short or brief. That said, they can do a no-fault divorce and it'll be like it never happened.
Okay. And is there any time period that has to be done before 1 year goes by or anything of that nature?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Good luck.
Bye.
540-0580. Carl Rominger here. When we come back from the break, we'll talk to Nancy about her fence and Bernie about the Better Business Bureau. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Bernie, what do you have to say about the Better Business Bureau? Hey, Bernie. Bernie. We lost Bernie. Oh, well. 540-0580. Nancy, you want to talk about the fence?
Yes. I have a question about what's the best way to proceed. I live in the city and with backyards, and there has never been a fence between my property and the house next door. Well, someone bought the house next door a couple of years ago, and they put up a stockade fence. And I've just come across some proof that it's on my property, like it's 4 inches over in my yard. How do I get rid of it, or what do I do?
So the fence they put up is encroaching on your yard.
Yes, it is. I finally found when the garage was built to show the property lines, and I've measured, and it is over on my property.
All right. Here's the answer. Before you go to court.
Well, let me say this. The neighbor is not a nice neighbor.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Before you go to court, here's the issue. You've measured, and I appreciate that. But the measurement that we're going to most be concerned about is a surveyor's measure. So I hate to tell you this, but generally speaking, unless the other side's going to admit that it's on your property line, the burden of proof is going to fall on you, and most courts are going to say, well, where's the actual property line? I need a survey.
There is a stake in there. There is a stake where the...
I'm hearing what you say, and there's a stake. It's probably a surveyor's stake.
Yes.
But I would still want, and if I was going to represent you, we're going to go to court. So let me explain how this works. I can send a letter to the other guy that says, hey, you're on our property, move the fence. If he says no, then I say, okay, we're going to have to get a survey done, and then we'll sue him in court if we can show that it's over on your property line.
Okay.
Because if I'm the judge, I'm going to say, ma'am, I appreciate that you measured it, but how do I know that it's really on your property? And you say, well, there's a stake, and there's this, and there's that. And I say, ma'am, who put the stake there? What's your answer?
Oh, that stake has been there.
Right, that stake has been there for a long time. So maybe it's a surveyor's stake, or maybe it's a surveyor's stake that somebody's 12-year-old son moved 20 years ago. Point being is it's going to be very difficult, and when we're looking at something as precise as 4 inches of property line, we're not going to let your eyeball control. So the next step, if he doesn't move it voluntarily, is to get a survey. Now, here's a little dilemma you have. If you complain about the fence being on your property, then do nothing about it, and he leaves it there, eventually it's going to become his property by adverse possession, right?
Yeah.
If, on the other hand, you go to him and say, hey, I believe your fence is 4 inches on my property, but I'm granting you a license, and you may use my property until that fence is replaced or repaired, then he wouldn't gain by adverse possession any portion of your property.
That's what I was concerned about him gaining, because that area... and I know 4 inches isn't a lot, but that's the area that's used that if I would ever have to get my roof replaced,
right,
where the ladders would go, where the workmen would go, that's why I need that extra space.
Right. So my strong suggestion would be, and he probably put the fence up at some expense, so he's probably not going to just move it.
It's a crappy fence. It's just a crappy stockade fence. He just hammered it into the ground.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe start with a request to have him move it. If he says no, then I think you're going to need to get the survey, because here's what would happen. If I got a letter, if a client walks in my office and says, Carl, I got this letter from this lawyer that says to move my fence, and they attach this survey to it, and I look at the survey and I go, well, the surveyor says your fence is on their property. And he's going to go, well, so what? I put it up. I'm going to say, well, the judge is going to order you to move it, so rather than waste your money fighting in court, do it. So rather than spend a lot of money on lawyer fees, I would say go to the survey next. And the survey could be very limited. You go to the surveyor and say, only answer I need is a letter telling me whether this guy's fence is on my property or not.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
All right, good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, the other, do not do the thing that some of my clients do, which is the fence disappears in the middle of the night, because then the police get called and things go downhill.
No, the fence is too big for me to move. Or else I would.
Tie a chain to it. Tie a chain to the bumper of your car, and hope that the bumper of your car holds.
I thought about that.
No, but seriously, that's a common self-help mechanism that I see people just sort of remove it. And every once in a while, even though you're probably right, that it's on your property, and theoretically removing something, a physical trespass from your own property probably isn't illegal per se. It's not recommended. That's the one time you're going to find out, like I said, that 20 years ago, some 12-year-old pulled a surveyor's stake out of the ground. His father yelled at him for taking it out of the ground, and then they pounded it in a foot over.
Yeah.
All right?
Okay, I just want to go about it the right way.
Yeah, that's the right way.
Okay.
The first thing I told you is the right way, not the second thing I told you.
Okay.
All right.
All right, bye.
Bye. 540-0580. John, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing, Carl?
Good.
I contacted the general attorney's office about this do not call list, and I keep getting calls because I've been on both lists for a long time. Well, they sent me back a nice letter saying that they use all this sophisticated blah, 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 blah. Well, since I got the letter, in the last 3 weeks, I've gotten 24 calls, 5 of them from the same number. And then I just happened to be flipping through the TV, and I found out that there are prisons that are using inmates to do telemarketing.
No, you can't beat it.
So I'm trying to find out, how do I go about finding out where these, shouldn't they be able to do something? If I'm getting the same call within
You got caller ID?
Yeah, I've got I've got a legal pad here with 3 full pages of numbers.
Okay. Well, the next thing to do would be go to Google and start Googling those numbers and find out who the owners are.
I was. And it was Dave County, Broward County in Florida. There was another place in Oregon. There was a place in Texas, and it just so happens that the place that was on TV and they were using murderers to do telemarketing, and they were interviewing the guys and said, well, they don't have access to the people's personal information. They just make the sale and then turn it over to a supervisor. But in the background, you hear the inmate saying, is mommy or daddy at home? That, to me, I mean, it sounds like a
they can't kill you through the telephone yet.
Well, it sounds like a ruse that if they're using inmates, I mean, wouldn't the government be subject to some kind of penalty here because I'm on the do not call list? It's coming from a government facility, possibly.
Right.
I'm getting sick of getting these calls.
I understand. So
I'm going to call the Attorney General's office back again, and I'm going to give them this whole new list. But it's ridiculous that I've contacted them 4 times and gave them the numbers each time, and then I heard the recommendation was don't answer the phone. Well, I haven't been answering the phone.
Right, they're going to don't answer the phone.
I just go back through my caller list on the phone and I write them all down. But this is totally out of hand. Why do we got to put up with it?
I know. All I can tell you is you can't get the government to do anything right?
Yeah, well, the reason I called was you had the mail lady talking about the do not send me stuff.
Yeah.
And the do not call on your cell phone. Well, if it's not working on a landline, how's it going to work on a cell line?
Well, and I can tell you the DMA, the Direct Mail Association, has put that together in conjunction with the post office to create a list to make it very easy. They've been very positive about self-policing. I don't think the telephone people have quite got it together as well. I got to go, John. Carl Rominger here, finishing up the hour. We've got one more full hour here. We'll be back at about 2:06 to answer your legal questions on the air, 540-0580. And, of course, if you need a lawyer throughout the week, go to romingerlaw.com, R-O-M-I-N-G-E-R law.com, or 717-241-6070, 717-241-6070. Of course, the talk line number is 540-0580.